Sorry about this delayed start. I was having some troubles with my teams here. So welcome to today's Athena Lunch webinar series. Today's topic is supply chain cybersecurity in the water sector. Again, my name is Rick Lugo. I'm a senior researcher at the Estonian Maritime Academy at Tallinn University of Technology. I'm a psychologist by education and a sports psychologist, actually, and been working within cybersecurity the last 10 years. I'm also part of the Mari Sabera project, which looks at maritime cybersecurity, and I'm the lead of the human aspects of cybersecurity research group. I'm also part of the CyberSec Pro project, which is developing cybersecurity education and training for professionals across Europe for both public and private professionals. And I'm also part of the Athena project, where our ambitions are to create innovative training modules, developments for operational technology personnel, and also develop this for European levels and develop it with a risk awareness and action perspective, so best practices. Today, we're going to be looking at the risk awareness aspect of things, and especially supply chain attacks. Let's also visit our Athena webpage. It is hosted by ATHENA-Digitalwater in the Netherlands, and there you'll find more information about the project. And we also have already some outcomes and articles that people can read. These are open science. So if you're interested in anything about the Athena project, please download and read our lectures, our research that is coming out. More to come also this fall. We do also are producing and developing e-learning and webinars and talks like this one. Last week, we had the very first one, which was just an introduction to human factors in cybersecurity. Like I said, today is supply chain cybersecurity in the water sector. And on Thursday, we'll have our third one from Taltech, which will be on incident reporting and lessons learned. Also, we do have talks and presentations already on our YouTube channel. Same also with this webinar series will also be presented there. If you want to look at it and share with your network, please do so. Looking at cybersecurity, we went through this a little bit on Friday, but we look at it at the cyber incidents response cycle, which we'll be talking about today. So there's a preparation aspect of things. There's a detection and analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery, and also the post-incident activity. And when we look at the 6 steps of incidents response, for example, we have proactive capabilities, so preparation and detection. And then we have responsive capabilities, which goes from analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery. We're going to be looking at a little bit at both of them today, but we're going to be looking specifically at the supply chain attacks. I want to also remind you that cyber incidents and responses, they occur within an organization at the individual, social, and organizational levels. We're not looking at wider world aspects of this, and we're just going to be focusing on these 3 levels right there. So I'm pretty sure some of you have heard about what the NIS2 directive is. If you haven't, I'll just recap it here a little bit. But the NIS2 directive is an official European Union directive that came out and it was in force since October 18th, 2024, where companies, institutions across nations across Europe have to abide by the directive's calls. There's some obligations there. So there's management bodies and companies and private companies can be held liable for their infringements if these are not met. So basically, they're state of the art. But when we look at the NIS2 directive specifically for today's topic, 2 aspects of it. So business continuity, such as backup management and disaster recovery and crisis management, need to be already developed for companies and businesses, but also supply chain security, including security-related aspects, connecting the relationships between each entity and its direct suppliers or service providers also needs to be developed. So basically said, risk management and risk assessment of one's company, but also of supply chain or third-party companies that one deals with also has to be accounted for. So with that in mind, we're going to look at a quick intro on the supply chain and what it means just so everybody who's maybe not familiar with it can get a... Ooh, sorry about that.
In light of recent events in Lebanon, the term supply chain...
Let me get there again. I'm sorry.
In light of recent events in Lebanon, the term supply chain attack comes up a lot. In simple terms, a supply chain is the series of steps involved in making a product and getting it to customers. These steps include suppliers, manufacturers, logistics providers, retailers, and customers. A supply chain attack targets the less secure elements within that supply chain in order to get to the main target. This approach often exploits trust relationships between organizations and their partners, making it a sneaky yet effective method for gaining access to sensitive data or systems. This type of attack can target hardware devices like what happened in Lebanon, or, in some cases, software applications similar to the attack that happened in 2020 known as the attack in the United States. A performance monitoring system called Orion was used to manage all the solar winds. In this breach, the hackers infiltrated the network's systems and data of thousands of SolarWinds clients. To protect against such attacks, organizations can conduct thorough assessments of their suppliers' security practices, limit access to sensitive systems and data based on the principle of least privilege, and regularly monitor your supply chain for unusual activities or vulnerabilities. I hope you found the video helpful. Remember,
Yes, that's just a quick introduction onto supply chain and supply chain attacks. We'll be discussing this more and more in this webinar series now.
if you're a professional...
Basically, we have to understand who needs to do this. So basically within an organization, this has to do with policies and procedures. This also has to do with culture, and it also has to do with individuals. When we look at it from the organizational aspect, we have to look at third parties and external people we deal with. So within an organization, we need to have a cyber risk management approach where we identify threats and vulnerabilities. We have to assess the risk exposure. We have to develop and implement protective measures, monitor and respond, and review and update. So basically, when we're talking about supply chain attacks, we're talking about people outside of the company. And if we do have such evaluations for people providing our businesses. I'm a psychologist. I do have my third-party suppliers. So, for example, I use web services and I also use cloud services to maintain my customer profiles and information. And I'm very reliant on them to have good systems up there so that they can't be breached and my information can't be leaked out or used against me. We're going to talk about those aspects of it. So there's the ATHENA threat landscape, just came out this past month, and it's got the update plans. But the top threats, as ATHENA has identified, are basically ransomware, malware, social engineering, threats against data, threats against availability, disinformation and misinformation attacks, and also supply chain targeting. So incidents accounting for supply chain targeting back in 2021 were at 17%, and they were less than 1% back only 5-6 years ago. But in the new updated version of this, we see that OT, since OT now is becoming more and more a focus, and especially for the ATHENA project, we see that supply chain attacks have been for 10% of the threats across European nations, but coupled together with 18.2 threats on operational technology, we can see that this is actually just going to be growing more and more. So how are these attackers selecting the third-party providers, and what are they doing to them to affect one's organization? So the supply chain risk, like I said, there's different supply chains risks out there, everything from disruptions from natural disasters to geopolitical risks to labor disputes and to transportation disputes. But we're going to look at cybersecurity risks, and these can compromise the security of supply chain data and disrupt operations by causing system failures or data breaches. The ANISA threat landscape for the supply chain attacks, as you can see, most of it is attacking suppliers' code. We'll look at that a bit more afterwards. 58% of the attacks are aimed at access of data. 62% of the attacks exploit trust of customers and their supplier. And 62% of the attacks also rely on malware. And this is delivered by different ways. And we're going to look at some cases here in a second and how the third parties were attacked. So supply chains attacks, they target trust relationships where insecure suppliers in the chain were attacked to gain access to their larger partners. That's not necessarily true all the time. They can also attack actually companies, as we'll see here in a second, that actually have cybersecurity as one of their focus. Software supply chains are highly susceptible to attacks because in modern development organizations, software is not created from scratch, and many off-the-shelf components, such as third-party APIs and open source code. I highlighted those on purpose, especially with the new developments in technology. We'll see how that can be utilized. And since the software is actually created on top of previous software, the vulnerabilities that these softwares already have are then actually just pushed forward. So a software supply chain attack might inject a malicious code into the application and affect all users of the application, while the hardware supply chain attack compromises physical components and uses them to infiltrate an organization system. So there are some differences in there, and it can be delivered in different ways, as we'll see here in a second. So basically, we have to have also a third-party risk management. So who is your supplier? What do they supply? And how are they securing their product? We'll have a discussion afterwards, and hopefully we start discussing, do we trust our third parties? How do you trust them? And what do you do to audit them and make sure that they are trustworthy? Let's look at some cases of supply chain attacks. Now, there is one big supply chain attack. I call it the GOAT attack. This is not in the water sector, but this is actually the Stuxnet attack. And this attack was done on an Iranian nuclear power plant where they in fact injected malware that made the turbines spin faster than they were supposed to, breaking down the nuclear power plants. This attacked the SCADA systems and the PLSs around them, and this was delivered via a USB. So basically, it was carried inside by an unwitting insider or a contractor, either through social engineering or just through making them carry this in. And the facilities control systems were air-gapped, so they were physically isolated from the internet. So you couldn't just attack it. So it was immune to traditional cyber attacks through web services. So they had to have somebody on the inside, maliciously or unintentionally, actually plug in a USB stick, which then injected the malware code. So from the Stuxnet, it did develop. Stuxnet was not just something that just happened once. And actually, the Dooku worm is closely related to Stuxnet, and that was then also found in European countries. So everywhere from Austria, Belgium, to the Netherlands, to the United Kingdom. Not only did that happened in 2011, but also in 2015, the Dooku 2 worm was actually found also across European countries. So, for example, for the Austria and Switzerland, these computers were infected in the hotels that were used for when they were doing nuclear negotiations with Iran. So, how those worms got in there still unknown. But the Dooku worm has very many similarities to the Stuxnet worm that was developed back in the early 2000s. So I call that the GOAT. It's because there's also a documentary out there if you want to find out more about the Stuxnet attack. Please do so. Plenty of documentaries out there that are worth watching to see how they injected it and the consequences of it being injected. So basically within 10-mile radius or 15-kilometer radius of the nuclear power plants, there was actually 2 million people living there. And if there would have been a disaster, it would have affected many people in Iran. But just recently, European airports were disrupted by a supply chain attack. This was basically in September, a few weeks ago, and they attacked a supplier of booking systems across different European airports, and it basically identified that the systems are only as good as their third parties that provide those services. So Collins Aerospace was attacked. They deliver uh, software to help airports with booking and checking in information, for example, and all these airports have to go to a manual approach to then get their customers to their destinations. And we'll get back to this here in a second. We talked about this on Friday also, but the Lockbit attack, they attacked a third-party supplier for the water authorities in Portugal, and what they did is they attacked a supplier called the Voltec. The Voltec is actually a supplier of different services, IT services, including cybersecurity services, but they had a weakness in their applications, which was either breached through social engineering or a weak password. So the Voltec, even though they did have good policies and procedures, they are a third party that got attacked, which then the attackers, so Lockbit was able to gain access information for the water authority and were then held for ransom. Lockbit's origin started in 2019. In the 2023, the attack happened in Portugal, but by then also Lockbit had developed two newer models of their ransomware. They were taken down in 2024 by criminal justice across Europe in a very big sting. But also just recently they've come out. Lockbit has reinvented itself and it's come out with a fifth iteration of their ransomware. And be interesting to see what happens with this 5.0 that's coming out now. There's also third-party suppliers now. We're starting to move into the future here in a second, but third-party suppliers do also offer digital services such as web extensions and cloud services, and attackers are targeting these digital services also. And with the future coming around, AI supply chain attacks will be happening. This is a quite interesting term that I just recently found out. It's called slop squatting. And this is the practice of registering a non-existent software package name that a large language model, such as GPT or Deep AI, and it'll integrate it into its databases, and then it may hallucinate its output. And we're going to talk about the human behaviors here in a second, but somebody could copy one of these packages and install the software without realizing it's fake. And that just basically brings us to the future of maybe third-party attacks, especially in the water sector. So Deep H2O. So basically, they're starting to develop AI systems to identify cyber attacks that use large language models to help threat identification. And like I said before, if you can inject a package into that LLM or into that AI system, then that AI system will not function correctly, and cyber attacks cannot be identified for the water sector, which starts giving us more to think about. So what kind of third-party services are we going to start purchasing and using? AI is the future, and we want to automate more and more. So that is the next step in the cybersecurity world for us. So when we look at slop squatting, so the new supply chain threat, how does it work? So basically the LLM suggests a non-existent package name. So basically just by going out there, and there's a lot of open source materials out there. And if an attacker guesses the correct name, that name gets then stored in a database and they register it and so on. So a developer or automation. If it's an automated process that installs it blindly, we usually just copy paste. There's some trust issues there. And then that malicious code that was dropped in that package runs inside different aspects. So it can be in SCADA systems or AI pipelines or whatever, and it then will disrupt that system. So why does this matter for the water sector? Operational systems in the water sector rely on shared libraries and automation. AI-assisted coding and DevOps tools amplify supply chain risks, and single poison package, like I said before, can alter monitoring data, disable safety logic, or exfiltrate OT network maps, for example. So basically, we want to validate against official registries, enforce package signing, and so on, and run new packages in sandbox for productions and so on. So that means we have to have IT/OT personnel that understands how this can then be infected and how it can infect our systems and cause breaches. So when we look at the human aspects of things, why the people are the first line of defense. So one of the problems that there is, we do have a copy-paste bias. And this is one of the problems with developers. They overtrust code assistant outputs. So we trust the developers. We don't check their work. And we do just copy-paste. There's also a speed pressure aspect of things. So security checks are skipped to meet delivery goals, to meet the new standards, to just install security patches, for example. And we want to get that done as fast as possible. And there's also what we call a diffusion of responsibility. We assume that other people have checked this and have okayed it. Since it's publicly available, it's something that we don't really think about as our responsibilities. There's also psychological mechanisms attached to this. There's an automation bias. We are becoming more and more over-reliant on AI suggestions. We don't question AI. Maybe we don't feel like we have the knowledge to question it, or we don't understand how it got to its decision, but we do trust it makes a better decision than us. So there is a automation bias there also. And with AI infiltrating the workforce, we need to understand how AI works and how that can also be affected by third-party vendors. There's also a cognitive load on this. If we have something out there, we're going to take decision shortcuts. We're not going to be as critical in the evaluation of it. So we need to be careful about that. And there's also a normalization of deviance. So basically, we take risky shortcuts that become habits. So, we copy paste things. We don't think about its consequences, and it just becomes more and more of a way of doing things. So what can the organization do? So basically, we need to integrate human factor training into all cybersecurity programs. So basically, making people understand that, yes, AI may be coming also to the water sector and also to operational personnel. They need to understand what AI actually does and be very critical about its information that it gives. We should also reward verification, not just velocity. We usually don't reward somebody checking up on a third-party vendor. We usually trust our third-party vendors on many things, but we need to start actually verifying that they're delivering what they're delivering. We have to add trust friction. So basically automatic dependency validation gates. And then people should accept that, especially our third-party vendors. They need to understand that they need to be vetted and they need to be questioned, and they also need to check if their product is something that's viable. And also we need to encourage incident reporting of near misses or accidental installs. How did that happen once we get to that point? Near misses usually aren't talked about, but within safety approaches, after action reviews or critical incidents reports should be written up and shared, just so that we can understand how mistakes were avoided beforehand. So we have also a culture of reporting near misses, but also reporting how we've mitigated problems. So, uh, as they say, cybersecurity and operational technologies is as much about human judgment as it is about technical controls also. And we do have to appreciate that part of human judgment, and we need to actually just train it and make people aware that their judgment actually has a lot to say here, and especially with AI coming into the workforce. So, step one basically of recognizing, map, and prioritize the supply chain threat landscape. You have to assess all possible risks, understand the supply chain, what are the key components by inventorying suppliers and assessing their security posture. Ask them what their security posture is, how they have made sure that their product is giving what it's supposed to be done. Group vendors into risk profiles, prioritize third party by their vulnerability levels, make sure you can understand that everybody is vulnerable. Like I said before, the Voltec was attacked by Lockbit, but they are also a cyber company, so not everybody is vulnerable, not just the people who are non-technical, for example. And identify the processes in the supply chain that pose a threat to sensitive data and systems, and determine suitable security measures. That's where the managers and the personnel need to figure out where vulnerabilities are, do good risk assessments and risk managements, not just one time per year, for example, but continuous updates since technology does change, personnel does change, and so on. So my supply chain, for example, as I talked before, is basically I work with a lot of professional athletes. I need to make sure that, for example, that the cloud services that I have and also the insurance companies are actually secure. So insurance companies provide me with information, and they also need my information. So I need to make sure, for example, that my clients' information is not going to be shared by this insurance company if they have, for example, a breach and what they've done. But I also have to check my cloud services. Uh, I just heard this morning that Amazon Web Services had some problems. It wasn't a cyber attack, but they did just have some problems, and it caused delays into access for people's data and everything like that. So just made me think about how that goes. And also, my PC is in my supply chain. Who has created my PC? What kind of PC am I using? What kind of apps do I have on my PC? I also need to make sure, for example, that my kids and family do not touch my PCs. Like everybody else, I am human also. I do have, for example, stored passwords. I don't have a password manager. Like I said, I work from home most of the time, and I live kind of secluded, so I don't expect anybody coming into my house to breach my computer or anything like that. But I do have, for example, let me call them trusted people that I've known for 20, 30 years, such as my electrician or my plumber that often come since I live on a farm. They have to come to the farm to repair things. And I never, before I started cybersecurity, I never really thought about how I need to secure my PC, even though they are home. They are risks themselves when they come to my house. Step two, as Anissa recommends, is to create a multifaceted supply chain security strategy. Supply chain attacks can have various objectives, including ransom, sabotage, and intellectual property theft. So make sure everything out there is understood. You want to look at the physical flow of assets, and you also want to look at the virtual flow of data or software. So look at the physical aspects of things. Supply chain doesn't just have to be on the cyber side or digital. It can also be cyber physical attacks. And this can be, for example, a repairman coming to the facilities to do some repairs and so on. What does he have access to? And what damage can they do? Maybe not in operational technology situations, but we have to manage remote work endpoint risks. Like I said, I do work mostly from home, even for Taltech. My computer is on a VPN if I turn it on. And I can, for example, for Taltech, I am a supply chain risk since I do work at home. I need to have a virtual private network on, and they give me a computer with a virtual desktop infrastructure, which I hate because I can't install my own programs. So they actually gave me a different computer where I now have full control of what I install on my computer, but it is always attached to the Taltech infrastructure. So it's quite understandable why, for example, a lot of companies wanted their workforce to come back from COVID-19 and work back in offices because of the cyber attacks that were happening remotely from home office. So monitor third-party risks. Identify the most valuable corporate assets. You need to understand who's providing you with this. Why would people attack, for example, a third-party group? Do they have access to your information of customers? Do they have access to information of your systems? So any third party that does have a certain type of access can be attacked to gain that information. And like I said on Friday, it's not that hard to connect people to different aspects. So people have LinkedIn accounts. They show where they work. They show where they're doing things. So if you know somebody is going to be working somewhere, you can attack them. So, for example, those USB sticks in the Stuxnet, they targeted people who worked on the inside of the factory that carried those USB sticks to them, and hopefully, one just would put it into a computer that had access to the nuclear power plant systems. So uncover evidence of activity already occurring, gain deep visibility, and identify gaps in the organization ability to detect these activities. Now with AI coming in, there's a lot of unknown vulnerabilities out there. We're just finding them out little by little. So therefore, we need better understanding of AI before it's actually put into the workplace. And for the water sector, and also with some older technologies out there, we don't fully understand how the IT/OT conversion will actually work out. So create risk evaluations. So basically, are they low? This is a risk assessment template that's out there. You can find them anywhere. And then you want to look by severity and also by likelihood. So what happens if the third party is breached? What is the severity of it? And what is the likelihood of it? Likelihood of it is actually increasing across the board because cyber attacks are now becoming more and more automated with AI. So any third party likelihood of being attacked is going to increase, and that's going to actually happen one day. It's just a matter of time. But then we have to also consider the severity of it. Is it going to be high? So if it's high or medium, then we already have some problems. So even if you're not a risk manager or a leader, doing a risk evaluation should be something you do. You can do it on yourself to see how you are, because everybody is a supply chain vulnerability for their organization. So the best practices is take a multi-pronged approach to risk mitigation, and sound practices can significantly reduce anxiety about security threats. Have good cybersecurity training programs along with up-to-date software and hardware. Give privileged access to people. Use multi-factor authentication. Like I said last week on Friday, the water sector breach in Norway at the dam was just basically there was a simple password, and then there was nothing else protecting the system, so it was easy to breach, even though it had no consequences. And also make sure there's data backup is in place. Basically, also have a zero trust architecture. So zero trust security, basically of your infrastructure. Don't trust anybody in your infrastructure. Don't trust anybody with a badge, even though they may work there. Don't trust devices. Don't trust other applications. Don't trust the networks that they're in. Don't trust the data that you're looking at. To put it this way, as a psychologist, I don't trust my wife and my kids with my phone or my computer. I don't never let them touch it because I never know what they're going to do. Even though they're my family, that is just something that they just cannot access. So If they need to show me something, I make them use their devices and so on, so I cannot breach my client's data. So people are also part of the supply chain. We often forget that people within the organization are part of the supply chain, and we are very susceptible, as we talked about a little bit last week, about social engineering attacks. So it's not hard to do. And social engineering attacks are on the increase. So we do have to understand that, yes, we as people, part of a supply chain, can also affect our businesses. So what is my risk assessment of myself, not just the place I work in, and so on. So you have to look at within the organization and look at how that works, but we also have to look outside the organization at third-party vendors and see how they can affect our business and its continuity. I recommend everybody to do a personal risk analysis. Basically, you can ask yourself a few questions. There's risk analysis programs out there that one can use. And if I ask you basically, and then we can discuss this afterwards, on a scale of 1 to 100, what is your perceived vulnerability to social engineering? You'd be surprised. How severe would it be for you if you did get hacked? You know what tailgating is? We'll talk about that here in a second also. Often we are traveling. I see people, I travel quite often, and I see people on their phones at the airports or wherever, or on their computers and just typing away. All you have to do is sit behind somebody. You can read all their emails. You can see what they're scrolling on, and they won't even notice you because you're not in their periphery. You're not even in their thoughts. They may feel safe and secure in a little corner, but they're, with their backs against the windows. Everything in the window is very visible, and you can just see exactly what they're doing. There's also watering holes out there. Watering hole is a technique where they make websites that you probably know, such as Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and knows what sites to target. So the attackers make a site. People go to that site either through a false Wi-Fi or anything like that, and people enter their credentials. And then, for example, the malware is dropped in the person's systems, which is then taken back to one's organization. And then with access to that system, they have access to that organization also. So that's also a way of attacking people. And we need to understand that we can be manipulated through different ways. It's amazing. People still connect to open Wi-Fi's at the airports or at the hotels without securing that these are safe networks. Even with VPNs today, VPNs also are getting attacked. They're becoming more and more complicated. So, for example, if you do require a VPN and as the lockbit malware is shown, you can actually get access. And if they have access to VPN's names, they do get access to also your organization's system. So Jamie Akhtar, who's the co-founder of CyberSmart, he said it best, the disruption at Heathrow, Brussels, and other European hubs this past month shows that cyber attacks aren't always about ransomware or zero-day attacks. In this case, the weak link appears to be a third-party provider behind check-in, boarding, and baggage systems. So basic call-ins there. And due to so many airport processes depending on it, the fallout will be extensive. It's a reminder that operational reliance on external vendors create a large attack surface, and when those services fail, the impact is immediate and highly visible. And then he also goes on to say that the rigorous assessment of supplier resilience, redundancy, and fallback options, and continuous monitoring of dependencies and clear communication protocols during incidents needs to be in place. Basically, the weakest link is often somebody else's system, but the consequences are felt by everybody. He also goes on to say, basically what we're going to be talking about in the next talk is incidents response and communication. So have you gotten attacked? How did you get attacked? Has it been something that's been on the outside? Is it a third-party supplier? What do we do about it? How can we solve that issue? And how do we report it? And how do we communicate it? It happens on Thursday, same time, same place. So basically incident reporting and then lessons learned. So we'll discuss effective reporting practices, regulatory alignment, and knowledge sharing mechanisms to improve response and recovery in critical infrastructure operations. We'll focus on the waterway sector. I want to remind everybody this Cybersecurity Month. We're going to have more webinars also going over October. We'll have some more also in November. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or want to contact me, please just send me an email, and I would love to discuss things with you. Or if you have any questions, we can also check something out. And thanks again from all our for joining us today.